the guy that gives me pause is Garrett Nussmeier. And the reason why, I've been a Nussmeier hater, and he looked horrible against Ole Miss. But I saw someone in the chat say he's never going to play that bad again. That's true. I think he may have faced the best defense in the SEC on Saturday, and he was able to make plays down the stretch to win that game. Now he's going to have to face another damn good SEC defense. But I definitely don't. I think people that watched that game and were like, "Oh, Nuss isn't that good," I would not jump to that conclusion just yet.
Yeah, for sure. And I was listening to Josh Pate this morning. He made some pretty good points about this game. I was talking to you about one of them, Andrew, but he was also talking about their defense and the improvement from last year's Ole Miss game to this year's Ole Miss game. Mm-hmm. They gave up 708 yards and 50-some-odd points to Ole Miss last year. And you look at it this season, they still gave up like 464 yards or something, but they got an interception, they forced a fumble, they forced a turnover on downs, and you know, kind of eliminated some of that damage, cut the point differential in half. And what he was saying is that's the difference for LSU in having a horrible defensive staff and a really, really high-level defensive staff. And I forgot that they went out and got, what's that dude's name, Blake Baker, the DC from Missouri,
yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good pickup for them. So it's an improved unit over there for sure.
Well, look, just since we're talking about the LSU game, it is LSU week. This is kind of the thing where, you know, Arkansas was in the bye, and you got a chance to watch, which is a great slate of college football, by the way. I know we'll talk more about that as the show goes on. But LSU, Ole Miss, two opponents that you're going to be facing here. Obviously, LSU this week and then Ole Miss in a few weeks. But the thing is about, like, LSU in that game against Ole Miss, like, what – or this is mainly for even the chat, too, but, like, what was there anything from that game that made you feel like, oh, yeah, Arkansas – you feel better after that game if you're an Arkansas fan of beating LSU? Because, to be honest, I don't have that. I don't have that at all.
Look, thankfully, I put this chat up before you went on your thing, and it kind of goes hand in hand. LSU's offensive line, they're decent in pass pro. They're the opposite of Arkansas, where they're pretty decent in pass pro, but they don't get any push in the run game. I don't know what they finished with rushing against Ole Miss, but it was under 100 for sure. It was like 50 yards. They really struggle to run the ball. Their running back, I mean, they're top guys out for the year. Their running game just hasn't really gotten going, and I think that's one thing we've seen about this Arkansas defense under Travis Williams is when they're able to kind of limit you to one thing. And, you know, that one thing is Garrett Nussmeier in a really good passing game with some really good receivers, really good tight end. But it's kind of like that's what Arkansas knows they have to be up against. I think when Arkansas gets in trouble is whenever you have teams that can really threaten you in the run and the pass. And LSU really doesn't have that in the run game. And I think Arkansas will be able to run on LSU, too, on Bryce Brim's point. And so I think if there's a thing that gives you confidence, it's like, okay, Ole Miss ran the ball pretty well on LSU. Ole Miss obviously has a pretty good offense. Arkansas's run game, this should be a little bit easier of a matchup than it was against Tennessee and Texas A&M, where they really weren't able to get going on the ground. So if Arkansas is able to get going on the ground and kind of force LSU to be one-dimensional offensively, which they kind of are anyway, I think Arkansas is set up to have a decent time in this matchup. And I will say, it's not like, I mean, LSU just beat Ole Miss at home. It was an awesome win, come from behind. It's not like they played mistake-free football. And so I think that there's a case to be made that the result was better than the process for LSU against Ole Miss.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge challenge for Arkansas secondary, especially without Jalen Braxton. That was a really good point about the polar opposites between Arkansas and LSU's offensive lines. It's so true. You know, Arkansas could go out and rush for 300 yards on a team, and Taylon Green's still running for his life the entire game. The flip side of that is LSU goes out and I think they got like 3 yards per carry. It was like 24 rushes for 84 yards against Ole Miss. Couldn't get anything at all going, but then Garrett Nussmeier, who's not very fleet of foot, he drops back 51 times and never got sacked in that game. And Ole Miss has a hell of a pass rush. So, yeah, 100% true, just completely different polar opposites on the O-lines for sure.
Yeah, because another thing, I know it's different games, and, you know, you can't expect the team to play the same way in back-to-back games, but, you know, you guys brought it up. Like, Ole Miss, they lost, but they shouldn't have lost that game. Like, LSU gave them a lot of opportunities. And they had, you know, a lot of success in a lot of ways. And that almost gives me a little bit more of hope for Arkansas. If I'm going to point to anything, is because the only way LSU won that game is because of, like on statistics, on box score, they shouldn't have. They made mistakes. They've had mistakes. And you got to feel like with, especially offensively, Travis Williams, having that extra week, you would think, would get them ready and really well prepared for this LSU team. Because it's almost like, guys, it's weird. I'm not even necessarily worried about the defense. I'm not saying the defense will play perfect, but it's more about if the offense can score.
Yeah,
you know, that's how it's going to be.
When Curtis and I were walking to Walgreens this morning, I said, if this turns into a shootout, I'm not super confident. And I said the same thing going into the Tennessee game. Like, if this turns into a 42-41 type of game, I don't trust Arkansas to be able to kind of match that pace, but I do think if it's a little bit more of a slugfest, a little bit more of a low-scoring, bend but don't break, field goal type of game, I think Arkansas is going to be in a position to succeed. And, guys, is the three-man front back? I mean, everybody hated the three-man front so much under Barry Odom, which understandable. I understand Arkansas had their struggles in that three-man front and weren't able to stop the run. But we saw them effectively implement that against Tennessee, which they implemented on 4 days' notice. So they should have a little bit better understanding if they're continuing to work on that. But I think in this matchup against an LSU team that wants to throw the ball against you, and they struggle to run the ball, if Arkansas might line up in that three-man front, almost dare LSU to run the ball, get out of their because Curtis, you know how it is. When you have the mismatch in basketball and you kind of force feed it so much, and so then you all of a sudden have your two guard that can't shoot and he's posting up a smaller guy. It's if you want to go ahead and do that 12 times a game, we'll let you do that because that's not your offense. That's not your game. I wonder if Arkansas might be able to utilize that three-man front again and kind of just dare this LSU team to run the ball because, again, that's not their game. That's not what they want to do. They might have to do it for matchup's sake, but I wonder if this three-man front, drop 8, might work against a guy in Garrett Nussmeier who also is not above making a bunch of stupid mistakes, similar to Matt Corral against Arkansas in 2020.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. It's pretty cool to see Arkansas actually on defense backing up some of the talk from that you always hear in fall camp. The most used word in every fall camp across the country, whether when it's a defensive player or a defensive coach or a coordinator, is multiple.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we're multiple. We're multiple. Oh, Arkansas actually is, and they showed that last week. So whatever they need to do, they've shown that they can kind of be a chameleon defensively, and not only have just a flawless game plan on Travis Williams' part, but man, they can go out there and implement it. Whatever you need them to do. Was just so impressed with the way they were able to go out there and do that against Tennessee. Effectively with the three-man rush, and then you got to then figure out what your personnel is going to look like when you're adding an extra body to on the back end or in the middle, and it's oh, damn, completely forgot we got this guy Larry Worth that we said all fall could do a little bit of everything. So I tell you what, we're going to put him in here and we're going to let him do everything. He's going to be back at safety for so many snaps, and then we'll pull him up and have him at linebacker. Oh yeah, we'll bring him off the edge, whatever we need to do. And this is a dude who didn't even play that much, so I think it really shows you how connected this group is defensively, and really they're picking up what Travis Williams and that coaching staff is putting down, and that's half the battle at this stage in the season anyway.
Well, and Curtis, what I love about it is, Arkansas still has some depth concerns at the D-line. That's still going to be an issue. That's still something Arkansas's got to account for. But in years past, especially we talk about that Barry Odom three-man front, it was out of necessity because they just didn't have the personnel to really mix it up. They weren't able to be multiple, like you're saying. And I feel like that's what makes this Arkansas defense so fun to watch and kind of special, especially with the way Travis Williams is able to get these guys to buy in week to week on whatever the game plan is they're able to kind of match what their opponent is. They're able to kind of conform to whatever they need to do. Whereas years past, Arkansas really just didn't have the personnel in the back end, especially in the secondary. They just didn't. They couldn't even find 11 guys they trusted, let alone guys they can throw in different positions like a Larry Worth, like a Switzer, or like a Brad Spencer, whoever it is. And so I just love that Arkansas is able to build. They have a lot of depth in the secondary, which has helped them with Jalen Braxton out, and at linebacker, and they've got these unique skill sets. They're able to kind of mix it up. And against LSU, it's going to be a completely different thing. When they face Mississippi State in a couple weeks, it'll be different then. When you face Texas, it'll be different then. And it's going to be interesting to see Arkansas try and match all these teams.
Well, and then also to throw it in, it's we talk about LSU and the way they play and everything. I'm going to be honest. You can't do what you did against Tennessee in that first half and expect to win this game, where you have in the territory of your opponent and you're there 4 times in their territory and you walk away with 3 points. That ain't going to fly. That's the stuff that I feel like is probably the most concerning, and something that against LSU, I think it's possible for you to move the ball, but it's going to be tough. But when you do move the ball, you can't leave empty-handed. You cannot go for 4th and 1 on the 38-yard line of LSU and not get it. You can't miss field goals, which I know, hey, you're gonna have a new field goal kicker this week, so you can't miss the gimmies. You got to be able to convert everything into points, which I know is cliche, but it's true because Arkansas has struggled with that. They were lucky to beat Tennessee still, despite of that, because of the defensive performance. But this nonsense of getting into red zone, getting into the territory, and having 4 of those and walking away with 3 points, you're not going to beat LSU that way. It's not going to happen.
You're 100% right. Yeah, you might get away with that once a year, and they've already done that now. So it has to get a lot better, and it should, man. In the offense, they've had their share of struggles, and Taylor Green's been up and down, whatever. But for the most part, if you just look at it big picture, they don't have problems moving the ball. Fairly balanced in terms of run and pass, and yeah, you just have to be able to come up with points in the red zone or near the red zone. It's just it stinks when you're kind of in that no man's land of, man, unless we just are super desperate for points or we're running out of clock in the half or at the end of the game, man, we really feel like we need to be in the red zone to even trust our kicker to attempt one.
Yeah.
And then you're not scoring touchdowns down there either. So it's a tough situation. I'm really anxious to see what Shipley looks like. We've talked about it so much, but does he kind of emerge as a gamer and a guy that they can trust to provide him a little bit of length out there on the field? Because it was such a luxury last season. When Arkansas stunk offensively, they couldn't do anything. But at least you knew if you got into the opponent's territory that you were probably going to be able to line up and have a pretty good shot at getting 3. And now you're actually moving the ball and you're just kind of stuck between the 20s. And LSU is kind of that, I guess in a way, that bend but don't break. And so, you need them to break. and you can control that to a degree.
100%. And that's what the Ole Miss LSU game came down to, in my opinion. Not as much the red zone, but Ole Miss had so many opportunities in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
They were 1 first down away from the game being over like 5 different times. LSU was begging them to take that game, to go ahead and put it away. They were up 23-16 with 6 minutes left. You've got the ball. You've got the quote-unquote best quarterback in the SEC. You've got the best play caller in the SEC. Get a first down in the game. And Ole Miss just refused to do it. Nussmeier threw a horrible pick late in the fourth quarter as well. Again, just 1 or 2 first downs, and the game is over. And Ole Miss just continued to give LSU chances, and eventually they made plays down the stretch to win. Arkansas really can't be in that situation, and I think Arkansas, it's a very different situation. You're going to play a very different LSU team, but to y'all's point, I think you've got to take advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves, and you got to put them away when you get a chance. Pittman talked about that too.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have an atmosphere that's going to be next level. I mean, you're going to have a packed out. I don't know what attendance-wise it'll be, but I guarantee you that attendance on Saturday will be a top 5 attendance in Razorback stadium history. Like, it's got that vibe. So you're going to have the fans. You're going to have the energy. You've had the bye week. You've had time. Things are in your favor, Arkansas, for this game. It's just a matter of you not beating yourselves, you not ending up doing stupid things that end up costing you in very crucial situations. This is about you playing your game because, again, I think LSU is a good team. And I expect it to be a close game, but you are perfectly capable of winning this game. And if you do, I think it's also going to prove a little bit because let's be honest, Tennessee, everyone after that game against Florida, they still won, but everyone's like, I don't know, like maybe Tennessee is not good. Well, if you go out and you beat LSU, then people will be like, all right, this Arkansas team is actually good. Like that's what they'll say.
Puts all that to bed, makes quite the statement publicly and just nationally, to that perception. And our boy, by the way, Unbiased, says, man, we got to go score and blow LSU out, man. I'm not trying to hear the soft crap. We need to make a statement. We got 2 weeks with 2 great coordinators to prepare these men and put them in a position to win. Wants a blowout. He's calling for blood.
Well,
I like it.
I do too. What's crazy is that this game, the 3-point margin, all that, it's like Arkansas lost to LSU 13-10 a couple years ago in Fayetteville, cold weather. I believe the game that went to overtime that Cam Little hit the field goal.
It was like 2017, 23-20.
I think it was like 16-13, to be honest. It was very low scoring. You've had some low scoring affairs in this game, close games, but hey, it's a rivalry. The best in college football and the best it has to offer. So you just got to go out. You got to take care of your business. You got to keep your guys healthy, run the ball effectively, and not have those horrible mistakes down in the crucial situations.